Hello, hello, and welcome to the State of the Borough Address provided by myself, Marcus Jacobs, to the Borough Council of the Borough of Wesleyville in August 2024. So let's jump right into it. So to begin, the outline that I will go through for this presentation is who am I? Who are we as a borough? What are we up to? What we ought to be thinking about, and as well as what we ought to be doing. And then I'll give a quick moral of our story and then some time for Q&A at the end. So to begin, who am I? I was born and raised in the Mount Washington neighborhood of the city of Pittsburgh. And then I came to Erie for school at Penn State Behrend, where I earned a bachelor's of business economics, as well as a bachelor's of international business, and then finally a master of project management. I have been a borough resident for a handful of years, and I have absolutely loved it here, as well as I am honored to serve as the borough manager, and I am proud to have completed one full year here at the borough as of August 1st, 2024. So thank you for that. So enough about me. Who are we as a borough? Well, as a borough, we were established in 1912, and we have a population of about 3,300 people. And we were largely developed in the early 1900s. And in my opinion, we built communities differently in the early 1900s. I would argue we built communities better in the early 1900s, and I'll tell you a little bit why. For one, we're much more tight knit. We are connected by a network of sidewalks. A lot of newer communities built after us have just abandoned sidewalks altogether. We have them. We also have front porches. Again, another thing that newer communities have just seemed to abandon. And quite honestly, they are very, very important. Front porches serve as the very important middle ground between a public space and a private space. And it's great for community atmosphere. And also, we do have, for example, older individuals who would like to live out their time in their home here. And when they're doing that, they have a front porch where they can remain ingrained in the community. They can see people going by, wave, walking their dogs. It is very important for the community to have front porches. And we've got them. Also, we have a traditional Main Street business district right here in the borough, and a lot of communities don't have that traditional Main Street anymore. We've got one. And not just any one, but it's also along the bustling corridor of US Route 20, and that's a historic route in and of itself. So we are very lucky to have that. And in total, we have 0.53 square miles. That's it, 0.53. It's 1 mile by 1/2 a mile across. That's all it is, for a total of 339.2 acres. And we do have a grid network, which makes us much more resilient. One example of that is this year, on Eastern and Edison Avenue, we did ADA improvements. And when we did that, I put out one message saying that, hey, the road is going to be shut down for construction. And that was it. We didn't post detours anywhere. We didn't have to worry about all that. There weren't traffic backups. Nobody was calling into the office complaining. It worked out just fine because we are a grid. So we shut down one intersection. That's fine. There's 10 different ways to go. So we are very resilient in that way. And also we're more multimodal and efficient in other regards. And I'll get to more of that in a little bit. We are also quite dense. So being that we're 0.53 square miles with about 3,300 people, we come out to 6,080 people per square mile. And yet we're still quite comfortable. That's a lot of people, but yet we're still pretty comfortable. Also, as a borough, we are the lowest form of government. And that is difficult sometimes. That has its challenges. That at times we feel like a small fish in a big pond, and it feels like the weight of the world on us. We're the lowest form of government. But if you flip it, it also means that we are the closest and most responsive form of government to the people. The closest and most responsive form of government to the people. That sounds pretty good to me. I like that. Also, as a borough, we are not alone. We are one of 956 boroughs across this whole Commonwealth. So we are not alone. We all face the same problems. We got much of the same fabric, and working together, we can get through anything. So what have we been up to as a borough? Well, quite a lot. To begin, our police department this year, over the last year, has had a big year. For example, they have launched a canine unit, which was entirely funded through donations, a grand total of over $80,000 of donations to get all the equipment necessary. And now our canine officer, Kesha, is in full service. Also, we hired a new officer as of January. So now we are up to a full complement. And also, we have launched the process of building out a sergeant's position in the police department. And that's important for having a hierarchy. As of right now, it was just a chief and police officers. This sergeant will help with the management of things in the department. And also, as of this year, within the last couple months, they have received a state grant of over $96,000, which covered the purchase of 2 police cruisers and a lot of computer equipment. That is huge. Huge shout out to Representative Mirsky. That's 2 police cruisers and a ton of computer equipment. That otherwise would have been still necessary. It was very necessary, and it would have fallen onto the backs of the Wesleyville taxpayer. So we're really happy for this state help. So great things in the police department. In the Wesleyville Volunteer Fire Department, we are extremely appreciative of over 100 years of service by that department to the community. And progress has certainly been made. It is not easy to provide fire service, definitely not for 100 years, and definitely not right now in this moment. It is very challenging to provide fire service, to get enough volunteers, to be properly trained, to do all that. That said, they are, continuing to fight on and making it work, and progress is certainly being made at the department. For one, there has been an influx of new members this year, so that helps with the labor or the member problems, member shortages. Onboarding of new members and training is occurring, so the department is strengthening. And also, we are improving coordination and collaboration between the Wesleyville Fire Department and the borough. Joint committee is being established, and that is important because the borough and the fire department are 2 separate entities, and at times that brings about challenges and sometimes not being in lockstep with one another, which again, we're greatly appreciative, and it's not easy to provide fire service, so we need everybody working together towards collaboration and coordination. So great things in the fire department. In the public works department, we have lots of maintenance to do to improve our borough, and the public works crew is chipping away at everything that they can. And there is a lot of work to be done. And to do that work, it is important that we invest in our department and provide them with the proper tools to get the job done, which we certainly have this year. We have gotten a new, to us, bucket truck, new tractor, and a bunch of new tools and equipment. And all of this equipment is going to serve the department for, likely upwards of a decade. And these are the types of investments that need to be made to ensure that they have the proper tools to get the job done. So we're very proud of that. In terms of public parks and recreation, at Hinkler Park, we have a bathroom going in by the end of this year. And we also have a parking lot that has recently just been added, and that definitely improves the area down there over what used to be. And we are also looking towards some grants. We're going to be putting in grant applications to improve accessibility down at that park in Hinkler. Right now, it's not very easy to get down into and to walk around. So we're trying to expand the trail network down there. At Memorial Park, we are adding cameras to the park, which is a really big step down there. We have experienced some vandalism, so we're going to get that done. Cameras cost a lot more than you think. It's surprising, but we are going to get that done. And a parking lots, there's a couple areas that are still not paved, so we're going to probably be getting that done within the next couple of years. And then in terms of Morrison Park, as you may have heard, we did have to tear out the old because it was quite old and it was dangerous. We needed to take that out. We didn't want anybody to get injured. That's the last thing we want. That said, we already have submitted a grant for the replacement of that park through the state. So fingers crossed on that. We'll hear by the end of the year. In terms of the transportation office, we have had a very big year. So for one, we had the reconstruction of 2 blocks of Center Street from Buffalo Road to Fremont, and that cost about $300,000. Very, very expensive. And shout out to the county executive, Brenton Davis, for contributing $250,000 of county gap funds towards this project. It certainly would not have been possible without that funding. Also, the resurfacing program that we've done this year included Eastern Avenue, Willow Avenue, Gray Avenue, and Idlewood Drive for over half a mile of roads, 0.65 miles of roadway, and that cost $210,000. So we got quite a lot done there. Also, in terms of preservation is a very, very important step. As you see, reconstruction and resurfacing is very expensive and it doesn't get us a ton of miles of roadway. That's why pavement preservation is key. Any good asphalt that we have must be preserved, and that will buy us time to focus on the bad roads that need to be resurfaced and need to be reconstructed. So we're looking at this year, we did already 1 mile of roadway of preservation for $45,000, and we're looking hopefully to do a round 2 of that before the winter, so we can make sure to really protect our roads. We also have ADA improvements. So 18 ramps total have been completed around the borough. Actually more when you consider, there's another 12 on Center Street, but 18 ramps separate from Center Street were completed, and that cost $49,500. So that's also, an expensive piece, but that really, really improves things. And what is nice about ADA improvements is they're going to last 50 years. For many, many decades, this stuff, anytime we do the corners with the ramps and do it the right way so it's easy for mobility, it serves the community for a long, long time. Lastly, the Hinkler Park parking lot is now in. So that, cost a pretty penny as well, but we did get we were able to use millings from our resurfacing. So we're going to keep using that technique. Use our millings from resurfacing and put that down as parking lot. And also Joseph McCormick Construction, located right here in the borough, was able to do that for us. So that was helpful. And over $616,000 was invested in our transportation infrastructure over the course of this year. It was very, very significant, $616,000, and we're working to make that even more in the future because we really need these investments. Now, it is worth noting, as we see, transportation infrastructure is very expensive, and it's a challenge for everybody, no matter who it is. So we in the borough, we've certainly had our challenges with keeping up with our roads, but it's not easy for anybody. So we need to remember that. And also there's 2 PennDOT approved firms in this region that are capable of working on public roads, only 2. And we're very lucky that one of them is headquartered right here in the borough, Joseph McCormick Construction Company. They've been here for a long, long time, and they get a lot of work done in our region. We're lucky to have them here. We are right in their backyards. And it is interesting, their asphalt plant, located right off of Pearl Avenue. We've got contractors coming from all around the region to fill up their dump trucks right here in the borough. So that's certainly an advantage when we're looking to get these projects done. In terms of the property office, we've made big improvements there. We made big investments into our borough hall, and that really has improved the look of it. The aesthetic has made the council chambers much more professional and everything. So I'm glad that we were able to do those. Also, we are working on the borough kitchen, and that is to be completed by the end of this year. And that's a huge shout out to Representative Mirsky, who hooked us up with that program, as well as the borough hall roof that really, really, really needed improvement. And once again, shout out to Representative Mirsky for hooking us up with that. But the roof was terrible, leaking all over, and we've got quite a big building, so it's not an easy task for a borough like us to complete. And also, we are proud of the fact that Representative Mirsky is actually in an office building that we own, just a couple of blocks down Buffalo Road from our own Borough Hall. And in that office, we've made significant improvements this year. We have we've painted, we've done flooring, we've done improved lighting. We need to continue to make those investments in that building because that is a very valuable building to the borough. And it's so far been able to serve several governmental functions, which we believe is valuable to the community here. So we need to continue to invest in that. In terms of community communications, two things. First, the wesleyville.gov has been launched, and that is a really important step. That is our most valuable digital asset, having a .gov, and being able to build out this resource platform of wesleyville.gov is important because it connects our residents with all the many resources and information that we need to provide, and we can do that 24/7. Much different than in our office hours at the borough hall where they have to travel. So that's a really big step, as well as our Savvy Citizen, which is a notification system with 1,300 people signed up, and it is not algorithm driven. That is very important because so far, trying to post anything on Facebook, it is very, you feel throttled. It doesn't get the message out. There's no guarantee that the message gets in front of people. However, with this notification system, when I send out a notification, I can be confident that all people that have signed up for it get access to it. And it is completely free. It could be through an app. It could be text message. It could be email. So it really opens up our connection with our residents in terms of communicating. So that's big. And then in terms of community engagement, we've had many awesome events. That includes the 2023 Fall Open House, the 2024 Wesleyville Community Day at Memorial Park. That's another great year of Wesleyville Community Day going on in our borough. And then 2024 National Night Out. That was a great event, getting the many departments out to hang out with the community and have a good time. And we really need to keep doing things like this. These events are key, and they go a long way to good community relations. And also another step in the community that has been made, which is huge, getting activity, is reactivating our planning commission. We really, really need members of our community to step forward and to help plan the future of this community. So we're glad that that has been reactivated and is now working. Also, the future is big. The past is just as important. And we have a lot of artifacts at the Borough Hall that have not been well stored, that have not been properly documented. So we are working, and we have assembled a history team to get that all organized. So that's really awesome stuff. So that's what we've been up to. Now let's look at what we ought to be thinking about. First, our competitive advantages. So I'm going to throw some economics terms at you here because I do, as I said, have a bachelor's of business economics. So absolute advantage versus competitive advantage. First, let's define it. Absolute advantage refers to the greater capacity of an organization in resources and production. Think more. Think this organization has more people, more money, more machinery, whatever it might be, they've got more than someone else. And then competitive advantage refers to the unique attributes or strategies that enable an organization to perform better or achieve superior results compared to others in a particular area. So unique attributes or strategies that enable an organization to perform better or achieve superior results. Now, to give an example of that, because I understand that's definitions, it's hard to wrap your head around. Let's look at one nation in particular, and that is South Korea. So we see them right here on the globe here, quite small. But they are a phenomenal example of leaning into their competitive advantages. So on paper, South Korea has 37,500 square miles. That puts them at only 109th in the world in terms of landmass. That's down there. They're also ranked 160th in percentile of arable land. That's really down there. And arable land is land you can grow food on. That's pretty important. Also, they are very low in other natural resources, and they don't really have any significant oil reserves. So a lot of their energy needs to be brought in. What does this all mean? On paper, it doesn't look too good for them. That said, despite their shortcomings on paper, they've grown incredibly fast. They have an export, they're an export powerhouse. They're a tech leader, and they have modern infrastructure all over their country. What is going on here? And they also have an overall 4th largest economy in Asia and 14th in the world. This is the 109th in terms of land area, but they're the 14th in the world and 4th in Asia. What's going on here? It's because they have leaned into the unique attributes or strategies that enable them as a country to perform better or achieve superior results. They've leaned into their competitive advantages, and those advantages are the unique attributes or the unique strategies that maybe only they can do. And that's what they've done. They've leaned into those. Now, what does that mean for us? Let's look at our competitive advantages. So just to jump right in, let's start with the sidewalk network. So we've got a network of sidewalks that certainly may be crumbling and cracked in some areas. And they certainly need ADA improvements throughout the borough. Progress is being made and has been made, but progress is still, needed. However, we have a sidewalk network. There are plenty of communities that can't say that. And having one versus not allows for residents to walk their dogs safely, and for residents to safely jog around the community, and for kids to walk to a friend's house or ride their bikes around. Having sidewalks is huge, and we've got them. We also have a traditional Main Street business district. As I said earlier, not everybody has that, and it might not be the biggest here. It might not be in the best shape, but we've got one. And we've got one on a bustling corridor, which is pretty good. It has a long and proud history of business, and people can actually walk, bike, or take the bus to our business district. People can actually walk, bike, or take the bus. That's not something that everybody in every community can do to get to their traditional Main Street business district in that way. Now, I did want to take a moment. As the borough manager, I have talked with many people about our business district, and I have gotten generally one sense. And a lot of people have asked, in terms of the controversial business types, specifically the smoke shops and the skills game shops, what can this signal about a business district when it is capable of hosting these types of businesses? What does it signal? What does it mean? It can't be a good sign, right? Well, let's not talk about those particular businesses, but let's just take a step back and think, when aspiring business operators were seeking a suitable location here in the Wesleyville corridor, they found what? They found small commercial spaces that were affordable, with low barriers to entry, that are highly, highly adaptable, and easily accessible to the public. So, in our business district, they found small commercial spaces that were affordable, with low barriers to entry, that are highly adaptable and easily accessible to the public. To me, those sound like competitive advantages, and those sound like the ingredients for a strong business district. We've got them. In terms of our borough hall, as you can see on the right here, it's kind of a funky shaped building, and there's a lot going on there. But it was built in 1954, and certainly it needs improvements pretty much all around. It's an older building. That said, it is pretty tight-knit, but we've used it for so much. We've used it to its fullest potential. It serves as our council chambers, police department, fire department, public works garage, borough office, community social hall. It is a lot for the community, a lot. And that actually has given us some efficiencies. It's good that the chief of police can walk to my office in 20 steps. Our public works supervisor can get to my office in 20 seconds or vice versa. It's good. And it has made us one tight-knit crew. Now, our borough hall is directly on Buffalo Road. It is prominently located in the borough square, and it has multiple bus routes coming right by our front door, and it's got walking access available in every direction. So the point is, there's always going to be other communities where they've got a bigger, better municipal building. You know, whatever it might be, there's always going to be a better municipal building somewhere. That's somewhere has an absolute advantage over us. That said, what's the point of having a bigger, better municipal building if you don't have bus routes leading right by the front door and you don't have walking access in every direction? Any investment we make goes a long way. And what's the point of having a big new municipal building if residents can't easily get there? Our residents can easily get to our borough hall, and I'm happy about that. Our parks, they've come a long way in the last decade, and we certainly have a lot more work to do to get them where we want them. That said, they provide us with a greater return on investment. When we invest in our parks, we get a greater return. And what does it matter if our parks, there's always going to be another park that is bigger, that has more facilities or newer facilities or whatever it might be. But what does it matter if kids can't easily walk or bike to the park? I'm proud to say here in Wesleyville, kids can safely walk or bike to our parks independently. They can do that here. And that is really huge for the development of our children here in the community. Kids can safely walk or bike to hang out with their friends or, you know, whatever they want to do at our parks. So we as a community must face the fact that we will never be the largest. We will never have the most people. We will never be the richest, whatever it might be. There will always be somewhere else that has an absolute advantage over us. But that's okay, because it's not all about that. We can lean into our competitive advantages and make the most of what we've got. We have a choice. Do we want to follow South Korea's path and flourish, or give up and stagnate? We have a choice. Flourish or stagnate. Now, let's think of another thing, value per acre. So we only have 339.2 acres. That's all we got, 339.2. We must make the most productive use of our land area that we possibly can because we've only got so much. And it's particularly scarce here in the borough. Now, let's think of something in a way that many farmers do. They, productive use of land is the basis of their business. And let's see how they think. So everything that they think is in terms of acreage. Cost of seed per acre, cost of fertilizer per acre, what's the yield per acre? They're thinking per acre because they need to make every acre as valuable as possible. In a municipal context, we calculate value per acre like this. We take the total taxable value of the parcel, which is assessed by the county, and we divide it by the size of the parcel in acres. So it is able to reach this level of taxable value with having only used this much. So we take the value divided by the size, and then we get what its value per acre is. So that looks like this. Let's take a property with a total taxable value of $89,000, which is pretty close to, average here in the community. Then we take a parcel size of 0.1 acres, again, pretty close to average, and we divide that. So 89,000 divided by 0.1 is value per acre of $890,000. So if you lined up 10 of these acres and you had 1 acre or 10 of these lots, and you had 1 acre's worth, you could expect to get $890,000 worth of value. So with this in mind, let's look at some of our most valuable properties. For one, our most valuable residential property, our most valuable, is a house on Skelly Avenue east of Station Road. Yep. It is a 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom, 888 square foot, and it was built in 1930. Our most valuable residential parcel. Has a total taxable value of just under $60,000, but it's on a tiny parcel. And when I'm talking about acreage on some of these smaller parcels, I'm going to just refer to it as a percent. It is about 4% of an acre. That gives us total value per acre of $1.534 million, our most valuable parcel. What about our most valuable commercial parcel? That's Yurkovich Plumbing, located at 2828 Buffalo Road. And they've got a total taxable value of $110,000 with a parcel size of about 9% of an acre. And that gives us $1.230 million. $1.23 million. And that was built in 1920. Next, we've got Terry Etzel's, 2914 Buffalo Road. That has a total taxable value of $160,000. That has a total parcel size of about 16% of an acre. And that gives us just under $1 million of value per acre. Built originally, the original structure, in 1928. JDL Computers, small, humble little storefront there, 3010 Buffalo Road. And the total taxable value is $46,800. Again, it's only on 6.6% of 1 acre. That gives us a value per acre of $708,000. $708 per acre. And that's built in 1928. So for comparison's sake, let's look at some of the newer commercial buildings that have been built. So the Dollar Tree, as we all know, total taxable value of $700,000. That's the highest amount that we've talked about so far in this presentation, more than anything else combined. However, to get to this valuation, it took up 1.26 acres. The other ones were 4%, 9%, 16% of an acre. This is over 1 acre to get to this value. And it gives us a value per acre of only $550,000. That's the lowest we've talked about so far. And that was built in 97. Country Fair, right off of Eastern, or right on Buffalo there in Eastern. Taxable value of $437,000. And that takes up nearly an acre to get to that valuation. So the total value per acre is the lowest amount we've talked about so far, $516,000 value per acre. Built in 99. So, I mean, what's going on here? It's kind of interesting. As we've seen, this is summarizing a table of what I just listed out, these properties. And some of the biggest commercial properties that we have are also the lowest value per acre versus some of the smallest ones really are making a lot of use out of their parcel. And as we see the Skelly House, I set Country Fair, the lowest we talked about, I set to 100%. So Skelly House is almost 300% the value of Country Fair. Yurkovich, 240% of the value. Etzel's is nearly 2% of the value of Country Fair. And even, little humble storefront there is still 140% of the value of Country Fair. So let's just put a pin in this for a moment, talking about the properties. Next is density is our superpower. It's our absolute superpower, and we really need to lean into it. So how is that the case? Well, we have 6,000 people per square mile, and that is considered urban. That is actually, quite urban, but yet it's still comfortable. It's not a bad number whatsoever. And for the municipality, it makes it easier to provide public service. When you think about it, a roadway network, there's fewer roads per person when we're denser. And there's less, when we do one stretch of roadway and we improve it, we impact 50 addresses. When we plow the roads or salt the roads, we impact 50 addresses, whereas other communities that are less dense might only impact a couple dozen. So it makes a big difference. Also, police service. It is much easier for our police officers to drive by any of our addresses, or in an emergency to get across the borough when we are as dense as we are. And for residents, the community is more tight-knit and generally more functional. You're closer to your business district, you're closer to the park, it's just easier. So it's better. And this traditional style of community development has worked for thousands of years. Thousands of years. And yet we don't really build communities like this anymore in the country. So arguably this is a competitive advantage of ours. Our density is a superpower of ours. Let's lean into it. What else do we ought to be thinking about? Well, our pension plans. And we have two pension plans, employee and uniform pensions. We just completed the 5-year audit up through the end of 2023. Both plans are healthy and are being classified or have been classified by the state as overfunded. Now, that does not mean that there's more funding in there and we're going to take it out or anything like that. Our pension plans, in the eyes of the state, are either in bad shape and they'd be underfunded, or good shape and they're overfunded. And we are both healthy, both of our plans, and they are considered overfunded. That said, we really need to be thinking farther ahead with these. When I was going through this audit, I had asked our auditor, the state auditor, I asked, a bunch of people, and everybody was pretty much saying nobody else is really thinking a decade or 2 decades ahead with their pensions. They're just thinking about the next couple years. We need to be thinking decades ahead because these really matter and there's people's retirements on the line. And, we have made significant promises and we will follow through on those promises. And anything that we do now, if we start thinking a decade or 2 decades ahead, anything that we do now, any marginal improvement will have a much bigger impact later on because we've got time on our side. We can make a little improvement and then we'll see that improvement go on for the next so many years. So we really, really need to be thinking about these plans and working to improve them and make them as healthy and strong as possible. So what do we ought to be doing? I've thrown a lot at you so far. What do we ought to be doing? Well, first and foremost, we need to take a different perspective on our zoning. Biggest, most important thing. Let's revisit our most valuable properties that I just told you about. Yurkovich Plumbing, the most valuable residential parcel, Terry Etzel's, JDL Computers. These are disproportionately more valuable than others, and for the size of the parcels that they sit on, they make them very, very valuable and make the most use out of them. All of our most valuable properties were built in the 20s and the 30s of last century, 1920s, 1930s. Well, guess what? Our most valuable properties, they're illegal to build again. We have outlawed building these types of properties again. Our most valuable properties, the ones that have served our communities for over 100 years. It's incredible. And we've outlawed them. And not just for one reason or two reasons, it's a lot. We've outlawed them because we set arbitrary front, side, and rear setbacks. And each of those ones would have failed those front, side, and rear setbacks. The maximum lot usage percentages, all of them would have failed because they used too much of their parcel. For example, in the R3 business district, which is supposedly our least restrictive residential district, we don't even allow more than 40%, 45% of lot usage. In our business district, we don't have a lot of our business district. We need to make it the most productive it can. We only let people use 60% of their parcel in that district. It's weird because Yurkovich, our most valuable commercial property, uses virtually 100% of their parcel. They use 100%. And it is no coincidence that they are our most valuable parcel. It is no coincidence. It's because at that time, we let them use 100% of their parcel and look at the value they've provided. Also, buildings that touch. You can't build buildings that touch here anymore. I don't get it. Mixed use developments. Yurkovich has apartments upstairs. Terry Etzel has apartments around back. The most valuable parcels that we have are mixed use, and we've virtually outlawed them. I mean, you functionally can't build mixed use in this community anymore. Why? You might be asking, is there a safety reason? Is there a safety reason that we adopted these codes? From what I can tell, no. I can tell you this. Modern day, we have meticulous construction codes. Meticulous. With advanced materials. In a greater understanding of how this type of stuff works, how we can build safely. I am very confident that we can safely build these structures again. If we can build them 100 years ago and they were safe and they've withstood the test of time, we can build them again safely today. What it comes down to is we can build wealth in the 21st century in much the same way that we did in the beginning of the 20th. Much the same way. Our very own laws have been the largest inhibitors of our development. We shot ourselves in the foot, and we wonder why development here in the borough has been stunted. This development style, a lot of times when you start talking about changing zoning, people get scared and they say, well, if we change something, will we impact the character of the community? Well, I can guarantee you this development style right here is not against the character of the community. It is the character of the community. It is. So we must take a different perspective on our zoning. We can't afford not to. Also, while I am on the topic of zoning, let's talk real quick about accessory dwelling units. You may have heard me discuss this before. An accessory structure, just to define it, is a structure that is separate from the primary structure on a parcel. So this is generally a garage or generally a shed. Then a dwelling unit is a housing unit. So an accessory dwelling unit is an accessory structure that could be lived in. That might be a new label, but it is not a new concept. We intuitively understand the concept, whether it be in-law suites, backyard cottages, whatever you want to call it. We are familiar with this concept of having some other housing unit on the same parcel. In fact, a prime example of an ADU, well, that house on Skelly, 888 square foot, 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, built in 1930. It is a prime example of an ADU because it was originally an accessory structure that was part of a larger parcel that now sits to its west. So it was an ADU. It was built as an ADU, and it's our most valuable residential parcel. So it is no coincidence that our most valuable residential parcel is an ADU. It's because an ADU makes productive use of space that would otherwise remain as undeveloped side yard or backyard. It makes productive use of a space that would otherwise go to waste. And we don't have any space to waste here in the borough. And ADUs are a win-win-win-win. When you really consider it, you've got a property owner who's seeking to make an investment in their property that would increase their property value, that would provide a revenue source for them. And that might be their retirement. They figure, hey, I can get paid every single month, and then I can live out the rest of my time here on this parcel right here in the community. As a renter, the renter benefits from additional housing stock in the borough and smaller affordable housing units that otherwise might not be available might not be ultimately affordable to them. These ADUs are smaller and likely that they would be. Also, local business owners benefit from additional residents and potential patrons. They like more people that would potentially walk to the business district and patronize. And the borough benefits from increased property tax base, additional residents paying income tax living here in the borough, and increased real estate transfer tax from the increased market value of the property. And ultimately a business district with greater activity, with more customers living in our community. So We must take a different perspective on our zoning. And next, incentivize development borough-wide. Our incentive structure is broken. The way that it works out is good property owners maintain property in good condition. They invest in improving their property further, adding a shed or adding a new garage, whatever it might be. And then the next year, we slap them in the face with a higher tax bill, the very next year. But the property owner of a vacant lot, they're doing nothing with it. They're coasting, paying very little taxes because they're only being taxed on the land value, which in general, the land value is minuscule in comparison to the building, but there is no building. It's a vacant lot. So they're doing nothing. They're coasting, paying very little taxes, and they have no incentive to do anything at all. It costs them so little, they might as well sit on it. And if it takes decades or decades, so be it. But from a municipal perspective, we can't allow for a bunch of our vacant land, very, very scarce resource, to just sit there and produce nothing. From a municipal perspective, we don't save money on services for an empty lot. For example, we still maintain the road in front by resurfacing or plowing and salting in the winter. We still have a police force that patrols the area and maybe even has to do more so because it's a vacant lot. And then we got a sewer line right down the middle of the road that still needs to be cleaned and needs to be functional for the other neighbors, but this vacant lot is just kind of wasted space. We compensate for this increased expense and lower tax base by raising taxes, which disproportionately affects the good owners. It is not fair to the good property owners when they take care of their properties and they invest in them. We raise the taxes. It's just a broken structure. So possible options there are doing some sort of split rate taxation where they maybe pay a higher amount on the buildings or on the land versus the buildings to incentivize, development. Or there's some LERTA, where we give tax breaks for a certain period. All of this I'm just kind of brushing on because we're going to have to really think deep into this, and these deserve a presentation on their own. But just getting us thinking, our incentive structure is messed up right now. What can we do to incentivize productive development in our community? And there is no silver bullet solution here. There's not one thing we can do and check the box and say, yep, we've done it. Nope. We must take a series of steps to get back on track here. We just have to. And it is important to note, it is unlikely that a large corporate developer will come to our rescue. Like most of the time, the development that could take place in the borough is infill development. And infill development means development that fills the gaps that we have in our community. Large developers aren't geared for this, and they don't see an adequate profit margin to justify the hassle. So consider this. If we've got one lot here, one lot a couple blocks away, one lot over there, large developers aren't geared to develop in that kind of way. They're used to taking one large thing and building 100 houses or whatever it might be. We don't have that kind of development. We have development that fills in blank spots. But ultimately, that infill development that we need will be driven by small, local, community-oriented developers, some of which may have never built anything before. So anything that we can do to simplify the process of development and to help them out along the way will go a very long way. And it is likely the difference between that structure being built or not, between that investment being made in our community or not. Local developers are the ones that will come to our rescue, and we must incentivize development. We can't afford not to. Next up, I did want to touch on, I know I was just saying local developers are the ones that will come to our rescue. That said, there is one large-scale potential development that could take place in our borough, and that is the development of the North Street parking lot into a more productive use. So that lot is located right now, as you see on the right there, it's that big parcel. It is our largest and most conveniently located buildable parcel. It is on our largest downtown block. It has prime transit access. It's next to a very active American Legion. It is across from our largest park, and it is around the corner from our Main Street business district. I mean, This is a very large, conveniently located, buildable parcel that is ready to go. It's on our downtown block, prime transit access, next to the American Legion, across from our park, around the corner from our Main Street Business District. It is just perfect. And right now, it is a municipal-owned parking lot. That's all it is. And the worst part is we can never justify putting money into that lot when we have streets that look the way they do. The money that we make off of the parking permits, selling parking permits for that lot, doesn't keep the lights on, doesn't pay us to keep the lot plowed or salted, and it definitely does not offset the cost of completely repaving that lot, which it desperately needs. This parcel, as ugly and dilapidated as it currently is, if it remains a parking lot, it is as good as it will ever be again. We will never be able to improve it as it sits today. But what if? Let's think, what if this was put into productive use? This parcel is nearly an acre. There aren't many acre lots in our community. Let's assume a value per acre similar to the Yurkovic building, just over, $1.23 million. At a minimum, this property could be valued at just over $1 million. $1 million at a minimum. The reason I say at a minimum is because the Yurkovic building used every inch of their parcel to get the value that they did, but ultimately their parcel was restricting. It's a smaller parcel. There's only so much they could possibly put there. This parcel is 9.4 times the size of the Yurkovic building, or the Yurkovic parcel. So I'm pretty confident that a lot could fit here, and likely they could even be a larger development in value than just $1 million, but let's call it $1 million. What if? With an assumed value of over $1 million, at our current tax rate, that would bring in almost $13,500, $13,500 annually. Then we can add the additional resident income tax that we would earn by more people living here, and additional residential rental permit fees, also non-quantifiable benefits like having a more active business district that attracts more businesses because there's more potential customers living right there in our business district. So there's a lot of value here, far more than even this, and we can't leave it looking like this. We need to do better than this, and we're never going to be able to do anything to improve it as a parking lot, because a parking lot is an unproductive use of our land. That's just a fact. We must make the North Street parking lot productive. We can't afford not to. We also must recognize that we do not have competitive advantages with everything, and therefore we must seek collaboration. Here's a couple collaborations. Some shared services with other municipalities. Harbor Creek, we get our vehicle fuel through them. It's great. They would have to have fuel anyways. And when we join forces with them, it's one less thing that we have to worry about. And it's been quite nice. For the last over a year now of being the borough manager, I haven't had to worry about keeping fuel in our vehicles whatsoever. I haven't had to worry about it. It's great. Also, the city of Erie, we have a sewer camera agreement with them. They've got a larger network with us or than us. We know that they're always going to have a crew. They're always going to have the best equipment. And if we can sign an agreement with them and call them out as needed, that's huge for us. And we've already done it. What about the City of Erie Municipal Garage? They've got a bigger fleet than us. Same deal. And now we know we've got an agreement with them. We can send our trucks to them and just know they're well taken care of for a fair price. They know what they're doing. Good stuff. And let it be noted, our most similar and logical collaborator is our neighbor, Lawrence Park. We need to be best friends with our neighbor, Lawrence Park. They have the same fabric of the community, the same problems, and together we're going to probably use the same solutions. Also, there's regional entities like the ECOG and the Erie County Association of Boroughs that we really need to remain active in and seek to be a leader for other municipalities in our region as well. And in general, we must forge deeper partnerships. We can't afford not to. So one other thing we ought to be doing is protecting our pedestrians. when people visit our business district, it is important that their journey to the front door of the business is safe, comfortable, and efficient. Safe, comfortable, and efficient. We must remember, oftentimes when we talk about pedestrian infrastructure improvements, some people might say, well, what about the cars? And it's looked at as cars versus people or something. We must remember that all car rides start and end as a pedestrian. All car rides. People will only decide to get out of their car in our business district if they feel that they are meant to get out of their car. Otherwise, if pedestrians are an afterthought, they'll just keep on driving by, and that hurts our business district. So when we invest in pedestrian infrastructure, we're investing in our business district, and we're investing in a safe, comfortable, and efficient way of getting around. We must protect our pedestrians. We can't afford not to. We also need to seek out cheap and quick wins. We must take unconventional approaches. And one good example of that is the community garden, which has been spearheaded by the Messiah Lutheran Church here in the borough. And they've done a great job at accumulating funding, but they've also done a great job at making sure they stretch that funding as far as they possibly can. And if you look at these boxes, they're nothing too elaborate or spectacular. They're cinder blocks and steel bands wrapped together. But what this means for the community is huge. This is an opportunity for the community to get involved and to show that the community wants this and is ready for this. And then that leads to future investments in these types of initiatives. Another good example near to us is McClellan Park. A couple years ago, they had simple benches, simple wood, just, nothing, no gravel or anything. It was just dirt paths. But they showed that this is something the community wants and would use. And now they've come back through and they've gotten grants for much better benches and concrete little pads and all this stuff. Very nice stuff. We must do that as well. We must seek out quick and cheap wins just to show that it works, to show that our community wants it, and then to lead to the next step of investment. And we must seek out these quick and cheap wins because we literally cannot afford anything else. Lastly, we need to activate the community. Improvement in our borough has only ever been community driven. The community must be engaged to be effective, and everybody has a responsibility to contribute to our collective future. Everybody has a responsibility, and Wesleyville certainly needs you. So, the moral of our story is this. We have experienced decline in the last so many decades, and we must adopt a new approach. We have great bones, we've got all the right ingredients, we've got a great starting point, and we aren't in as bad of a position as we may feel. We have significant competitive advantages, and our best bet is to lean into them. Again, we can be like South Korea, lean into our competitive advantages. We have the power to embrace change instead of allowing change to just happen to us. We have the keys to the borough right here in this room, and we have the power to unlock our fullest potential. Thank you, and I hope this presentation was insightful, and I hope you walk away from this having learned something and having a fresh perspective on our community. Thank you.